So it's recording now. Let me get rid of that. I know, I gotta keep it right here. All righty. Okay.
So welcome everybody. It's nice to see you on this rainy Monday. We appreciate you giving us your time tonight, and we're excited to talk to you about math. I'm Annie Kuhn. I'm the curriculum specialist here at Webb.
And I'm Amy Carlson. I'm the math interventionist at Webb, and I service students in kindergarten through 6th grade.
I'm gonna flip the slide.
Let's flip the slide. Okay.
So as you may have heard, we have a new resource for math this year in Wethersfield, and we're really excited about it. We want to tell you a little bit about it and how this came to be. Wethersfield used to use Go Math, and that was like a primary instructional resource for 7 years. And then the publisher announced that it was going away. So we put together a team of educators from the whole entire district, many different educators from all the different schools and all the different grade levels were represented. And we decided which programs we would pilot, test out for a year. We chose 2 to pilot last year. And then from those 2, we chose Illustrative Math.
So I think this is really cool. We came through what we wanted in a new math program through a vision. So we used the vision of the graduate, which you may be familiar with. It's all over our Wethersfield Public Schools website. And as we kind of dissected each one of these pillars that has the graduation cap on top of it, we started breaking it down. What does that mean in math? And how do we want that to relate in math? This took about 2 full hours for us to really put our ideas together because everybody had such different views on math. And it kind of went along with like your age. You know, if you were older, you were taught math a more traditional way. If you were younger, you were taught math in a more hands-on way. And we came to a collaboration and we created a vision. Once we created our vision, then we started searching out math programs that went along with our math vision. So if you want to take a second, I don't like reading slides, but if you want to just take a second, the ones that are in blue and purple are like the highlights of it, of what we were looking for. After we looked through all of these, we tried 2 programs. And is that the next slide? No, okay. We tried 2 programs. We chose iReady, and we also chose the Illustrative Math. And that team of teachers that Annie was talking about, they piloted both. First, we did Illustrative Math. In the second half of the year, we did the iReady program. And at the end, through a vote using our vision, which was so cool, we didn't even know we were taking a vote. We came up with that Illustrative Math was the one that best fit what we were hoping that Wethersfield would use.
And I think before we switch the slides, that last thing, consider themselves to be mathematicians. I think that's so important. We want our students to consider themselves mathematicians. And we feel like this program will support all of our students in feeling that way about themselves.
If you have a child in the younger grade levels, K through 2, they will tell you I call them mathematicians. Based on a book. Okay, next one.
So let's talk a little bit about Illustrative Mathematics. It was developed by a team, specifically a couple of math professors and people that were proficient in the Common Core standards. It's an open source program. It started as an open source program, which means that it was free for everyone. And it started as a middle school program. And they found that they had such success with it that they moved it down into the younger grades and developed the program for the younger grades as well. There's a couple different companies that actually produce the program. Your students have workbooks, and there's an online platform for teachers. So sometimes you may hear teachers refer to it as Imagine Learning, but that's just the platform that we use to teach illustrative math. It was designed to address not only the Common Core content standards, but also the math practice standards, which really foster learning for all students, like we said.
We're gonna have questions at the end. So if you have a question, I just want to jot it down and we promise we'll get to you. This was really cool. Just like we have in our classroom agreements, there's also math class norms. And so the students for the first week of school, we call it Unit 0. they're establishing their math community. And in their math community, they're deciding what's acceptable in math and what's kind of not acceptable. So we know that answers are important, but they're not as important as the students that are doing the thinking to get to the math. So thinking about math and sharing ideas and talking about it is part of our math class norms. We know that errors, they are gifts, which sounds a little nuts, but it's true, because when we have an error, we're able to promote discussion, we're able to learn and think and work through and problem solve. Using multiple strategies and representations and sharing those is a huge key to illustrative math and building thinking classrooms, which we're not really talking about tonight, but I'd love talking about it, and asking questions of each other. So what I did is I went to the classrooms, and this is the first grade, Mrs. Wilson's. This is her math class norms. So during math time, she just changed the wording around to make it more appealing for first graders and for them to understand. So she'll say, like, thinking is more important than the answers. Mistakes give our brain another chance to grow. We talk about each other's ideas and we agree and disagree. We ask questions, we show answers. And then for a fifth grade example, this is Mr. Silver's classroom. He used it based on the respect agreements that the students have and that you'll see tomorrow night or on Wednesday night during open house. He used and talked about how when you're doing math, what students should be doing, what the teachers should be doing, and norms within the math community, and what the teachers should be doing for part of the norms, which is giving tools to be successful, to be helpful, and to be patient. The students came up with the norms in his classroom along with him, and I think that that was an awesome way to start the school year for week 0, which was last week. Right? Last week or week? Yeah, last week. Wow. School year.
I know, I can't believe we're only on
Yeah.
week 3.
Feels like 2 months.
So what does illustrative math look like in the classroom, and why did we choose this program? Why are we so excited about it? Well, the first thing that you should know is that traditionally, I'm sure some of you or most of you were taught math, and that the way that the teacher stands up in the classroom, in front of the classroom, they show you an example on the board. You might do a few together as a class, and then they send you off to do several problems on your own. Well, they might help students that are struggling, but it's really promotes a lot of mimicking. I'm going to do this, you're going to watch how I do it, and then you're going to try it. It doesn't really promote that deeper understanding and flexible thinking. So this program sort of flips that model on its head. What we do is we give students a chance to figure out some problems on their own and in groups and in partners. Then we come back together, we talk about their thinking, and the teacher really at the beginning stages of a lesson really serves more like an anchor or a guide. And then at the end, we synthesize everything together, and then the students will go off and practice a little bit on their own. So as it says on the slide, the teacher really acts more like a coach at the beginning, and the students discover the learning themselves. We know that there's multiple ways to do things like add, subtract, multiply, and divide numbers. And so we let the students come to those discoveries on their own, and then eventually they will come to what works best for them, and then we will talk about the most efficient methods. So I'm going to take you a little bit through some of the components of the lesson. So each lesson, no matter what grade, starts with a little bit of a warm-up. This is a 5th grade warm-up. So you can see that there's some fractions there. It's a subtracting fractions problem. And the first thing the teacher says is that they're going to find the value of each expression mentally. So they're not going to use pencil and paper. They're not going to use whiteboards. They're going to think about that on their own in their head, and they're going to try and solve it. You can do this problem multiple different ways. So after the students have come up with some answers, they talk about it. Maybe I subtracted 2 minus 1, and then I subtracted the fractions. Maybe another student might have taken 2 3/4 and subtracted 1 first and then subtracted. Hi, Ashlyn.
Hi, Ashlyn.
And so there's multiple ways to come up with the answer, and the students are discussing this. So that's their warm up. You can go to the next slide.
Okay. Oops. Let's focus on Ashlyn.
Okay. So this is, I was going to say too, a warm up in 1st grade might look a little bit different. They might be counting. They might be counting by 5s or counting by 10s. They might have a which one doesn't belong or something to notice and wonder about. So that warm up is really what we call a low floor and a high ceiling. It means the low floor means that every single student in that class can participate in that warm-up activity. You don't need to know complex math in order to do that. Everybody can participate. So then we get into the activities of the lesson. And this is where that partner and group work comes in, and it's really strong at the beginning. This is a first grade lesson. You and your partner are going to get a bag of objects. You're going to find out how many are in the bag, and then you're going to work with your partner to count the collection. And then they're going to show how many that they counted. You will find some students who just 1, 2, 3 count each thing individually. You might find students who put things in groups of 10 or groups of 5 and group them that way. So that promotes a lot of discussion and number sense learning, and students learn from each other.
I would sort by the color or something like that.
And some of them might sort by the color. This is a 5th grade warm-up, our first activity. So you can see in the very top corner, they start with a couple pictures. What do you notice and what do you wonder? It just gets them interested in what they're looking at and what they're talking about. And then it gives them some background information. It talks about the women in the picture are dressed in traditional Indian garment called a sari. It's made of colorful fabric. And then they talk about the bracelet in the picture, give a little bit of background knowledge before they proceed into the actual math. Then they talk about these bracelets that were passed on from generation to generation. And it talks about Priya's mom, how she wore an heirloom bracelet like this at her wedding. And it gives a date. And then it says the wedding was in 1996 and the bracelet was made in 1947. So how can you figure out how old that bracelet was, or how old she was how old the bracelet was when her parents got married? Then it takes it a step further and says, well, when her grandmother wore the bracelet, her wedding was 24 years earlier. So there's some more math that needs to be done. Okay, go ahead. And then when the students get to work and talk together, they talk about, are both calculations correct? One looks very different than the other. Why does one calculation have some numbers crossed out, some new numbers, but the other one doesn't? So students talk, they explain their reasoning. And this is much more involved and in-depth and engaging than just showing students how to subtract with regrouping, putting a problem on the board, and then having them go back to their seat and do 10 problems. They're really talking about, why did you do it this way? Why would someone have crossed things out? Why does the other one not have anything crossed out?
And that kind of goes back to our vision of that real world applications, where you're going to want to calculate how old something is someday. Or like, I just remember driving through a cemetery when I was younger, like just trying to figure out the ages of people. So it does have the real world applications.
Oh, go back one.
Okay,
I was just going to say, at the end of the lesson, students do have some independent practice. They might be working in a small group with a teacher. They might be off on their own trying some. And then at the very end, they have what we call a cool down. It's just a quick problem or two. It's sometimes called an exit slip. In Illustrative, it's called a cool down. And it gives the teacher a sense of how students are doing right at the very end of that lesson. So you don't have to wait until the chapter test to really figure out where your students are. Every single lesson, especially in the upper grades, the cool down at the younger grades might be done as a whole class where a teacher's just taking quick notes on each student. But in the upper grades, it's actually like a physical paper cool down where they have a problem or two. It shouldn't take them very long, but it gives the teacher a good sense of who's really got the concept down, who might need a little more work with it, and who might need some small group work the next day.
To go along with our math program of Illustrative is we have Dreambox Learning. Dreambox Learning is just like Lexia, which I'm sure you're mostly familiar with. Thank you. It is the first time that students log into Dreambox, they take a placement test to see where they are mathematically. So every student's going to be coming in on different levels in the classroom. It's not all the same. And once they get through their levels, which is a fun game, they think it's a game, then they start getting applications that go towards that game. So they have skills that will go along with their levels. And then if they're stuck in a skill, they can press, I'll show you. This is an example of a student page. I'm not sure if you can see what I see, but there's like a little eye underneath there. And if they press that eye, it gives them information and it helps them along to progress on their levels. Students really like it. It's engaging, it's fun. And they can buy things for their little avatars and make them grow and get bigger. And they can move on to different levels. We recommend that students only do this in the lower levels for about 10 to 15 minutes a day. And as they get to the upper grades, 15, possibly 20 minutes a day. But just 5 a week. We don't want students at home doing it for hours and hours because they want to build their avatar and get further and further along, because we don't want to be a burnout either. So just like when students are doing Lexia for 15, 20 minutes a day, we would like them to also do Dreambox. Some teachers, because it is a new pilot year or new year for our program, might not have enough time during their math block to do this. And I know one teacher today was talking about how they might assign this for homework. So if you do get it sent home for homework, please know, just do it for 10 to 15 minutes if you're in K through 2. And if you're in grades 3 through 6, you might want to consider 15 to 20 minutes, but no more than that, so students don't get burned out.
Right, and we don't want them moving through the levels too fast.
Right. So if you're going to use Dreambox at home, here are some things. We put 15 to 30 minutes, but 15 to 20 is also very acceptable. Please don't help them. I know you're going to be so tempted because you're the parents and you love them and you want to just like sit next to them and go, let me show you how to do it. But here's the thing. We teach math so very differently. It's not new math. We just teach it differently than you might have when you were younger. So when you're trying to show them a standard algorithm, which is like lining up the numbers and crossing off things, that might not be the way that's best for them in their learning. I promise you, during conferences, if you ask the teacher, well, how is my child best learning in math, they will have an answer for you, because it might not be a standard algorithm that you're used to. Some kids might add to subtract, which sounds like insane. How do you add to subtract? But trust me, it's a process and it works. And for siblings, if you have siblings who are multiple kids in this school or outside of the school or middle school or high school, please don't have them share each other's Dreambox account. This is something that should be held sacred just for your child and for them only. So one other thing to encourage is for them to not to use paper and pencil, no calculator, no multiplication grid, none of that. Just have them try to do the thinking on their own mentally, because Dreambox is not going to give them something that's so complex that they need to write things down and really calculate it. But if you see your child struggling, like if I saw my child struggling, I'm telling you right now, put a piece of paper and pencil in front of them and say, this is what you need, then do it. But really try to encourage not doing that at home.
So this is the most important reason why you are here, because you are interested in math, you're interested in what your child is doing at school, and you want to partner with us to make sure that your child is successful. So how can you help your child at home? The first thing and the most important thing is talk about math in your daily life. If you're cooking, talk about the fractions, or we're going to double this recipe. So what does that mean? If we need 1 cup of flour and we're going to double it, what do we need to have for this recipe? When you're shopping at the grocery store, maybe you talk about, we have $20. What can we buy that costs less than $20? Or give your child $5 and see if they can find a few things to go buy for $5. Building, if you are a carpenter or you have, you're doing a home renovation, those are great measuring opportunities for your child. Traveling, you can talk about the distance that you go. I know when I fly, which is not very often, but when I'm lucky enough to fly somewhere fun, I love to watch like the miles tick down and talk about how many miles it is to our destination.
Yeah, ask your child, like if you're going to fly or go somewhere, how many miles do you think it is to grandma's house, right? And they're going to say 1,000,000. And they're like, all right, cool, maybe it's 1,000,000. And then start your tracker, your odometer, so they can really see what 1 mile looks like.
Right. You can play games together, Monopoly, Yahtzee, Guess My Numbers. All of those are great math strategy games. Even, games like Sorry or, honestly, even things like Twister are, strategies that children will use to figure out math problems. Encourage them to explain how they arrived at their solution rather than just asking them for the answer. If we went back to the norms that Amy talked about, the math is important, but it's not the most important thing. The thinking that they do to get the answer is the most important thing. Our teachers, you may have already gotten them, but our teachers are going to be sending home family letters via Parent Square. Illustrative has a family letter for the start of every unit, and that will just give you a quick overview of what the unit's going to be about. It will give you some example problems so that you can help your child at home. And then please reach out to us with any questions. If you have questions about how to do something, or, the way I learned it, we call it the old-fashioned way, right? The traditional way of doing multiplication. That may not be the way that your child's doing that. The standard way of multiplying is actually not a Common Core standard. Wait until the upper grades. So it's important that if you're not sure how to support your child, reach out to us or reach out to your child's teacher, and we can give you more information.
Yeah, we don't want to confuse them. So this is one of the best parts of the night.
Oh, before we ask questions,
okay,
though, I
okay.
thought about one more thing too that's really important. Having a positive attitude about math with your child is so important.
Mhm.
I've heard so many parents and so many of my friends say, oh, I was never good at math, or, oh, I'm never good at math, or there must be some sort of math gene and I didn't get it because I'm not good at math. Please do not say things like
There's
this
no
in
math
front of your
gene.
child.
No such thing.
Yeah, there's no such thing. Some people are just more inclined to work with numbers and it comes easier for them. But if you have a positive attitude about math, that's really going to rub off on your child. So saying things like, I always really struggled with math, you may think that you're empathizing with them and saying, I know because I struggled too, but make sure you couch it in a positive way to say, sometimes I struggled, but I really worked hard and I was able to do it. And now I really love math.
So we just talked for 23 minutes. Please, if you have a question, just unmute your microphone and ask away. If you feel more comfortable raising your hand, there's a little hand button down below. You can click on that. But we'd love to hear what questions you might have about our new math program.
Hi.
Hi. How you doing, Leroy?
I'm doing good.
Leroy, do you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say hi.
Nothing. We're good. We're so.
I think everybody's tired.
Well, if you do have questions, you can always reach out to us anytime. Again, my name is Amy Carlson, so I'm acarlson@weathersfield.me. Thanks, Shannon.
And I'm Annie Kuhn, A Kuhn, Kuhn at Weathersfield. The Parent Square came from me, so you can remember my last name. I always tell the kids it's like a raccoon, but it's spelled completely differently.
I called you Kun for a little while.
Yeah,
yeah, but it's Kuhn.
It's a tough short last name.
Yeah.
The other thing is we know that you'll have open house for your students and your children tomorrow night. So you can ask your teachers questions, and they'll be talking a little bit about Illustrative in their particular classrooms as well.
The question about how do you get login for your students' Dreambox is really, really easy. All they have to do is go into Clever, and all students know how to get into their Clevers. Kindergarten might not yet. And they get into Clever and they just click the Dreambox and it logs them on automatically.
Yeah, and if you're not sure what Clever is, it's just like a single sign-on platform. All the younger students have a Clever badge and they just log in with that and it takes it right to all the different platforms that they have access to.
I love hearing that Tiago's enjoying his math class. It's a different vibe and students are really into it. And if you ever want to learn more about building thinking classrooms, let us know and we'll do another night.
Building thinking classrooms is just a way that we teach math in the classroom, and it's a way that students do group work.
It's very random. It's
but
awesome.
It just marries up nicely with Illustrative. And so we're happy that your students are coming home so excited about math. And we think that this is going to be a really transformational year in Weathersfield as far as our math achievement.
Here's hoping. All right, any other questions? We don't want to keep you all night. Well, if you're so kind and you want to watch this again, I'm going to stop the recording and you can watch it on a loop. Oh, that's cool. Thumbs up. I never saw it before. I love that Michaela loves math. That's wonderful. Thanks, Leroy.
That's great.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, maybe right here?